What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll be live streaming this afternoon, probably around the time this video drops or directly after it. So you want to keep an eye on that. I'll be checking in with you all a little bit later today. But this morning there was an interesting article brought to my attention through Colin Moriarty that Kotaku has basically admitted defeat, admitting that video games websites are just done for a variety of reasons. And I have to actually say that the article is relatively introspective and honest, and I agree with a lot of the things that are in it. And while I try to hold down my lunch after saying that, in a lot of ways it's basically admitting defeat, admitting that the model is dead, and that Kotaku is going to have to be a website like not about video games anymore. The original tweet here from Colin says, "This letter from Kotaku's new EIC is fascinating. The through line that the old way of games coverage is dying and has no core fan base anymore, depends entirely on SEO, and likely can't be saved is shockingly honest." Look, I can directly attest to this. We tried to make exclusively games a thing, where it was just a website that covered video games and video game adjacent things, and it never really got off the ground. And that's with, a lot of people pulling behind it. We know that Kotaku itself has been, degrading over the years. But what's interesting is you can see a lot of the replies here. Honestly, games journalism died when the Kind of Funny crew split from IGN and you split from them. I can't stomach IGN or games journalism anymore. You can see, I respect this line. Video game websites as they exist now repeatedly fail to represent a wide swath of people who play games. Is exactly what you've been trying to tell folks for nearly a decade now. This, brought to you by the same people that like to do, they say diversity and inclusion through exclusion. That's really the way that they talk about it. On the Kotaku Twitter feed, you can see a lot of the pushback. What happens is when you've been antagonistic towards gamers for so many years and relied almost exclusively on hate bait, you don't really have a chance. I mean, you can look at this. Your brand new editor-in-chief, 7 hours ago, it received a whopping 188 likes. I mean, Kotaku is completely gone. Now, I will argue that, writing non-clickbait is difficult to survive in. Really is. A lot of people like to say, the poop and the pig one. A lot of people, lots of poop. Okay. You see a lot of this stuff. Patricia Hernandez, I would argue, isn't exactly one of my favorite authors, but the article, is interesting. And by the way, I call all of these people authors or journalists because they're definitely not journalists. There's some interesting points where she says, or they say, I want to dismantle and redefine what a video game website can be. I don't like what I see, where to even begin. I hate that nearly every website's day-to-day is predicated on the release schedule, a news cycle set by publishers. I hate that coverage cycles of big-budget video games and how the game is never more important than when it doesn't exist yet or when it just launched. I hate that so much of what video game websites consider worthy of coverage is often written for a specific type of presumed reader. It does not matter if a website is considered, quote, progressive. It says everything that when writing about certain issues. Video game websites often have to take care in explaining basic concepts like racism is real. No, see, that's the thing. Video game websites don't have to do this. And that's precisely what I'm talking about. At some point, having to explain power dynamics over and over again is not a question of informing readership. It's tacit acknowledgement that our audience likely has a specific background. And consequently, the reality means that even as we cover more mainstream subjects or marginalized identities, the writing is not truly for that wider audience. This haunts me. The presumed reader looks or sounds nothing like me, yet here I am leading a video game site. What a shocking admission. You know, like the idea is that you admit you don't belong writing these type of articles. So rather than writing video game articles, you want to just change. You just want to make Kotaku a non-video game website. It's not a matter of being woke. It's a matter of survival. So essentially, the new editor-in-chief completely acknowledges what we've been saying about the website for years. Video game websites as they exist now repeatedly fail to represent a wide swath of people who play games, and every year that passes, this failure becomes more and more evident. Everyone plays games now, yet these people hardly frequent video game websites unless they need to know how to do something. If we reach this mythical mainstream gamer, it's likely because Google willed it, not because we've cultivated that dedicated readership. Since social media websites throttle who can see our work, we spend our time worshiping fickle SEO gods. Your favorite game website is likely quietly bankrolled by guides and service writers who try to predict what people will search next, not news writers, critics, or even reviewers. Playing that traffic game, and being good at it, of course, is only a temporary salve. Yesterday it was Facebook, today it's Google, tomorrow who knows? Fair point. Hilariously, gaming websites fail the capital G gamer repeated too, and I also hate, you can see how they view gamers, right? The capital G gamer, the same way that they will asterisk the word gamer. The perpetual focus on what's coming next is not compatible with the idea that we are here to cut through the hype. Don't pre-order games, we say, while dutifully covering big events that exist to get you excited about the next big thing. Meanwhile, events like Xbox Game Pass destroy the release cycle modern gaming websites have relied on for years. What's new and shiny has no bearing and will actually take off in the public, as evidenced by games like Among Us. New in and of itself might be outdated concept in the age of remakes, remasters, and re-releases across generations. It's tough to wrangle all of this, but it's not like websites don't try. Here at Kotaku, we have the art of embedding within games, but best described as an effort to continue covering games as they evolve and grow. When I was at Polygon, we called these living games, but the same basic idea applies. Games get updates, audiences change, we try to reflect our best. So you go from Polygon to Kotaku, you go from one sinking ship to another. You know, burnout is endemic, which is ironic when you consider the ongoing push to highlight crunch. Vying for relevance versus dwindling time is something sometimes only the start. Writers, especially those with marginalized identities, often have to grapple with nonstop anger. No, they don't. They don't. If people had marginalized identities, they don't have to write about that. They could write about video games. They could write articles that don't antagonize people, that don't call people things like capital G gamers. Anger over suggesting a video game reflects real life world in any way, shape, or form. Anger that we get paid to do something while many people will gladly do it for free. Anger stoked by influencers who need you to believe that game journalists are awful. I don't need you to believe that game journalists are awful. You know they are. You can read their work. You can read their articles. You can read how antagonistic they are to video gamers. I don't have to push any narrative whatsoever about that, ma'am. Anger fueled by 4 years of constant propaganda that mainstream media is fake. Oh, Trump! Oh, Trump! Anger that the news we report sometimes doesn't present video games and communities in a positive light in the wider public. You can also, report on that kind of stuff without, antagonizing video gamers and blaming them. Ultimately, this is what it is. You see here, realistically, a lot of what I described cannot possibly be changed by a single person or even a team of people. By printing this, I'm opening myself up to criticism every time I don't change at the larger forces governing this work. I haven't even touched the institutional struggles here. But there's no secret to anyone who's read my GNO media websites over the last few years. Failure seems inevitable. But I am the sort of cursed person who cannot shoot for anything less than changing the way the game is played. What would that even look like anyway? So, yeah, I mean, look, you got to collect the salary. You got to pay your bills. You can't just throw your arms up and quit. Ultimately, that's the reality. you have largely been replaced by YouTubers. You see, yeah, the biggest YouTubers in the world started out playing video games, and sure, Pokemon Go took over the outside world for a summer a few years back. The largest entertainment properties on Earth are created using game engines, and nearly everyone has a device that plays games now. The question is, what kind of audience do you want? You say to properly showcase video game culture, it's necessary to talk about digital lives more broadly. We live in a world where your exercise bike has a leaderboard. Language apps have daily challenges. Maintaining everyone's attention now necessitates treating platforms, their algorithms, and their functions like the system that can be gamed and won. Games provide crucial framework for parsing modern life, and Kotaku will now attempt to capture that. Well, best of luck to you. I mean, you haven't been relevant in a really long time. And see, the difference between, you talk about in this article about how Kotaku can't rely on, trust and people coming back, that they have to rely on SEO. That's where you and YouTubers are different. YouTubers, we exist, we have subscription feeds, but by and large, it represents less than 5% of our traffic. What brings people back to my channel is them remembering me, them trusting me, and when something comes up of interest to them, coming to my channel and searching it out. Patricia, if you were to treat your viewer with more respect and less contempt, you could still write baity articles, you could still write your spicy headlines, but you could actually cultivate some loyalty. That's what you should be looking at. The YouTubers figured this out 5 years ago, basically effectively removing the need for you to do anything whatsoever. But I'm glad you admit it. Best of luck to you, Polygon Transplant. I look forward to reporting on what is sure to be a dumpster fire. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.